This is the Khalifa International Bowling Centre in Abu Dhabi. Amongst the very best in the world, the centre features no fewer than 40 lanes and is host to the World Bowling Women's Championship. Close to 150 athletes have travelled from 30 different countries to contest gold medals in a series of team and individual events. At first thought, people might regard bowling as a leisure activity rather than a professional sport, perhaps because it's so widely accessible. Yet, while it's true that bowling is very popular recreationally, at its highest level, this is an incredibly challenging sport.
Most people have a hard time understanding what I do and what we're doing in bowling, because they can go bowl and have a beer and french fries and that's bowling, but that's completely different than what you're seeing out here this week. You have to really work hard and there's a lot of technical things that go into it to get to this level.
A lot of people think it's just like you go to the bowling center, drink a beer and play bowling and have fun. So if I tell someone I have a world championship, they're like, oh, you can play bowling in the world championships?
When they finally get to the bowling alley and watch, they get really impressed. So I think that people just need to see bowling and they will get more impressed of it, yeah.
I mean, it's a fantastic sport. People can bowl if you're 4 years old or if you're 100 years old, So there's a great recreational side to our sport. And yeah, we got pizza and yeah, we got beer. But as from the athletic side, if you look at this competition, it's a lot more serious, a lot more involved. It's no different than golf. I use that comparison a lot. You've got the Tiger Woods of the world, and then you have, the Sunday hacker that goes out and plays 18 holes of golf and sits in the bar afterwards and enjoys the sport as a recreation. From an athletic point of view and the players that are very serious, it's a sport. They treat it just like any other sport.
While it's pretty clear that success requires relentless pinpoint accuracy, the casual observer might not fully appreciate the intense levels of preparation that the competitors undertake.
We train 5 to 6 times a week with minimum of 3 hours on the lanes a day. Maximum, there was once we were at the bowling center for almost 11 to 12 hours, and it gets tiring, but when you achieve something or when you make a great decision on the lanes and you get the results, it feels great.
When I'm home just training, I practice every single day, sometimes twice a day, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, it varies. And then on top of that, I'm in the gym every day also for another hour and a half at least. So it's a full-time commitment to get to this point.
Korea is legendary. They pick their team to come to these events 6 to 9 months before the event. They take them to a dorm. They live in the dorm together. They live on the Olympic Village in Seoul. I've been there. It has a bowling center, it has classrooms, it has everything, and they train 4 times a day, 6 days a week. About 12 hours a day. Now you think about 12 hours a day in the gym and lifting weights and bowling and classroom, and they're all 22, 23, 24 years old. Well, they probably have to be, because at 35 or 40, you probably can't do that. I love their plan. It works. It's very successful.
There's far more to bowling than meets the eye, literally. Sitting on the surface of every lane is an invisible and ever-evolving layer of oil. The density and formation of this oil is pre-programmed and deliberately varied. Similar to the way that changes to the surface of a racetrack will impact upon the grip and performance of a racing tyre, these oil patterns affect the speed, direction and rotation of the bowling ball.
Every lane you go to, there's a difference. And then it doesn't mean that lane will be the same tomorrow. It's going to be different again, because there's so many variables that affect the way your ball rolls and ball reaction going down the lane. If you're following a certain person that's bowling on that lane, they will move the oil around a different way than somebody else did the day before. So there's always adjustments, there's always manipulation of release, there's always ball changes, there's always speed changes, there's always things going on. Although it looks like somebody's just throwing the ball, it's way more involved than that.
Where you stand and where you throw will change based on where that oil is. You can't stand the same spot every shot, throw the ball the same way every time, because the oil moves and you have to adapt to it. But because you can't see it, you kind of have to base it on what you see when you see your ball go down the lane. So it's challenging.
Everything affects it, you know, even the temperature of the building. If that lane surface is very cold, then the oil will stay thicker and stay in the same place longer. If it's warm in here, it's like putting butter into a frying pan. It'll melt and just kind of blend out. Well, oil kind of does that too. There's a million variables, you know, that we think about. That's why we go crazy, you know. We think about all this stuff.
An added layer of complexity centres around the balls themselves. It's no surprise to learn that competitors have their own bespoke bowling balls. What is surprising is just how many they have.
In a regular tournament, you can have as many bowling balls as you want, and pros usually bring between 6 to 10 bowling balls, depending on how many different patterns we bowl. In the World Championships, you actually have limit, so we have a limit of 6 balls on 2 different patterns. For professionals, that's crazy, because like we are so used to having so many different bowling balls. There's been times where I brought 18 with me, because I don't know what the pattern is going to be, because it's different in every time. Like in my garage, I have probably 40 bowling balls.
I like to relate it to golf. You have different clubs for what you're trying to do, and that's kind of similar to why we have so many different bowling balls. Everyone kind of does something different, and then you can manipulate it with the surface or by the way you drill it, and makes it do even more different things.
It's so much now about making the right decision, what ball to use and everything, things like that. I mean, 20 years ago you had your bowling ball and that was it. Now you have a lot to choose from, and you choose the wrong one, you don't win the medals.
The dynamics in every ball is different. The material on the outside is always different. So the trick is to get the right kind of dynamic drilling, plus the combination of the cover stock, we call it the cover stock, the surface, to match up with the type of lane surface we're bowling on, plus the lane oil, and plus the bowler and the little, you know, the little differences or nuances that each bowler has, how to try to put it all together so they can actually perform well.
On top of everything else they have to think about, the bowlers also have to perfect their technique. And bowling straight down the middle is not the way to do it.
Having a bit of a hook to the ball generally creates more angle to the pins, which helps with your carry percentage. It helps you get more strikes. However, there's no one perfect way to do it. It's a little bit different depending on your style. And the general principle is, like what we bowled on this week, we had a shorter oil pattern where you're generally going to play a little closer to the gutter, which is usually scary for your average player. And then on the longer oil pattern, you play a little farther away from the gutter, a little more in the middle of the lane to keep the ball close to the head pin, and that usually yields more strikes.
It's a game of swing. As much as we can, we try and get them to talk about just being loose with your swing, and it's repeatable then, and then we go on and teach them how to hook the ball, and then if you've got those things going, a bit of balance, and then you can see a target and hit it, you've got a chance.
So there's some insights into the sport of bowling here at the Women's World Championship. In our next report, we'll learn about the development of the women's game, and we'll take a look at the team competition, as well as the battle for the Masters title.